Billionaire's wife mocked a single dad's clothes. He designed her favorite brand. They laughed when she looked him up and down at the gala entrance. Diana Hargrove leaned toward her husband and whispered, loud enough for the man beside the coat check to hear, "Did someone let the help in by mistake?" The Whitmore Grand Ballroom was everything money could buy in one room. 12-foot floral arrangements. A string quartet playing in the corner. Women in gowns that cost more than some people's cars. And Marcus Weston stood near the entrance in khaki chinos, a light blue button-down from a discount store, and shoes that had been resold twice. He carried his daughter's small overnight bag because the event included a charity sleepover for kids, and he hadn't thought to hide it. Diana Hargrove stood beside her husband, Clifton, board chair of the Hargrove Foundation, wearing a floor-length gown by Vassell. The label was discreet but unmistakable, a small gold V at the collar that women in certain circles recognized on sight, the way a whisper can carry farther than a shout. She looked at Marcus's shoes, at the overnight bag, at his untucked collar. Then she said, louder this time, to the cluster of donors forming behind her, "I hope the valet got a good tip. That level of wardrobe must take real effort." 3 women laughed. A 4th pretended not to hear. Marcus met her eyes, said nothing, picked up his daughter's bag, reached down to fix the strap on Amara's shoe. She was 7, and she tied it sideways again and walked with her to the sign in table. What Diana Hargrove didn't know was that Marcus Weston was the man who had designed the Vassell label she was wearing. What none of them knew was that the V at her collar, that discreet gold stitch she'd paid $4,400 for, had been sketched at a kitchen table at 2 a.m. by a single dad trying to build something from nothing after his wife died. By morning, Diana Hargrove's evening would not end the way she imagined. By morning, several things would change that she could not take back. But for now, Marcus just signed his name on the donation list, took Amara's hand, and walked into the room. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Weston had been trying to find his daughter's other shoe. It was a Tuesday, which meant the week was already half over, and he still hadn't confirmed the playdate, replied to the school's email about the auction item he'd promised, or remembered to thaw anything for dinner. He'd been up since 5:15. Amara had been up since 5:40, which she announced by standing at his bedroom door saying, "Dad. Dad. Dad," at 8-second intervals, until he answered, "Good morning, baby, I'm hungry. I know. Give me 2 minutes." He made oatmeal the way she liked it, brown sugar on one side only, not mixed in. He made coffee for himself and drank it standing at the sink looking out the window at the neighbor's oak tree, while Amara ate and told him, in detail, about a dream she'd had involving a horse who could do math. The apartment was not large. A 2-bedroom in the Edgewood neighborhood, rent that had gone up twice in 3 years. Marcus had moved here after Claire died, downsizing from the house they'd bought together because he couldn't afford the mortgage on one salary, and didn't want to anyway, not without her. That was 4 years ago. Amara had been 3. She didn't remember the house. Sometimes he was relieved by that. Sometimes it broke him. He worked from the 2nd bedroom. Sketch pads on a folding table, a good monitor, shelves of fabric swatches and color samples organized in a system only he fully understood. He was a freelance designer, had been for 6 years. Before Claire died, he'd done work for 3 mid-size fashion labels. After, he'd scaled back. He needed school pickup. He needed to be home. He'd taken a part-time position with a small clothing manufacturer and done freelance on the side, and the math had worked, barely, if he was careful. He'd been careful. The Whitmore Gala was a charity fundraiser for the Children's Arts Foundation, a program Amara's school benefited from, and one Claire had volunteered with before she got sick. Marcus had donated a design consultation package for the silent auction. It was the most he could give. He'd also signed Amara up for the children's sleepover component, because she'd asked 3 times, and he'd told her 3 times maybe, and then finally looked at her face and said yes. He was not a gala person. He owned one good suit. He hadn't worn it in 2 years and wasn't sure it still fit. And when he tried it that afternoon, it pulled at the shoulders in a way that made him look like he was bracing for impact. He put it back, chose the chinos and the blue shirt instead. He looked presentable. He was not going to pretend otherwise. "You look nice, Dad," Amara said from the doorway. "Thank you, Bug. Your collar's undone." "I know. I'm still deciding." She walked over and buttoned it for him. Her small hands were very serious about the task. He let her finish. "There," she said. He tucked her overnight bag under his arm and took her hand, and they walked out together. The sign-in table was staffed by a woman named Helen, who was brisk and efficient and handed Marcus a name badge and a program booklet without looking up. He found their table, 22, toward the back, which he didn't mind, and settled Amara in with her coloring book before taking in the room. He was scanning the bar layout when Diana Hargrove arrived at the table next to his. She was polished the way certain wealthy women are polished, not ostentatiously, but completely. Every element deliberate. The gown was Vassell. He recognized the cut before he recognized the label, the way a musician hears a note before they name it. The silhouette was from the Meridian collection, 2 seasons ago. He had designed that silhouette. He had argued for those specific seams in 3 revision meetings, and eventually the creative director had agreed. He looked at it the way you might look at something you made with your hands, and then gave away, with a complicated mix of pride and distance. Diana did not look at him with either. She looked at his shoes. He watched her lean toward her husband and say something, watched Clifton Hargrove smirk, watched 3 other women form a small cluster and follow Diana's gaze back to him. He picked up Amara's bag to give his hands something to do. "I hope the valet got a good tip," Diana said. He looked at her directly. She met his eyes without embarrassment. In her world, he figured, this was just observation, just stating the room. He bent down and fixed Amara's shoe. "Ready, Bug?" "Yes," she said, already reaching for his hand. He walked her to the sign-in table for the children's program, left her with a hug and a reminder about the overnight bag zipper. Watched her find another girl her age within 40 seconds and immediately begin comparing nail polish colors. He exhaled. He went back to his table. The man already seated at table 22 looked up when Marcus sat down. 50s, quiet face, sensible jacket. He introduced himself as Owen Briggs. He was a retired teacher who'd been coming to this gala for 7 years because his late wife had started the children's reading corner in the attached library. They talked about their daughters. Owen's was grown now, in her 30s, living in Portland. Marcus's was 7, and currently somewhere in the building negotiating a second dessert based on a technicality she'd devised. "She sounds like a negotiator," Owen said. "She's going to be terrifying when she grows up," Marcus agreed. It was the first time he'd smiled all evening. Then Diana Hargrove appeared at their table. She was holding a glass of champagne and wearing an expression of polite, weaponized concern. "I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable back here. The foundation tries to make sure everyone feels included, even guests who might not usually attend events like this." She paused. "Sometimes the seating chart is a bit aspirational." Owen went still beside Marcus. Marcus looked up at her. "We're fine, thank you, of course," she smiled. Her eyes went briefly to the overnight bag under his chair. "Enjoy your evening." She walked back to her table. Owen said quietly, "That was rude." "Yes," Marcus said. "Do you know her?" "No, she saw my shoes." Owen considered this. "People like that are afraid," he said finally. "They mistake taste for worth. It's a poverty I wouldn't trade for." Marcus looked at him. "My wife used to say that," Owen added. "She was smarter than me." "Mine too," Marcus said. They ate the salad course in comfortable silence. The trouble started when the Foundation's development director took the microphone. Patricia Voss was efficient and warm and clearly good at her job. She ran through the evening's agenda, thanked the sponsors, and began recognizing donors by contribution level. The ballroom applauded on cue. Each name met with generous acknowledgement. At the platinum level, the Hargrove Foundation, $50,000. Extended applause. Clifton Hargrove nodded. Diana raised her glass. At the gold level, the Whitmore Group, $25,000. More applause. It continued down through levels. Marcus was on the list. He donated a design package valued at $8,000, which Patricia called a significant in-kind contribution from an independent creative. There was applause. Polite, scattered. Diana's voice carried from the next table. "In kind. How sweet. They count those now." The woman beside her suppressed a laugh. Clifton said nothing, which Marcus understood to be its own kind of agreement. He felt his jaw tighten. Owen was watching him. "Don't," Owen said quietly. "I'm not going to do anything." "I know. I meant don't feel what she wants you to feel." Marcus exhaled, nodded, picked up his water glass. He thought about Amara, somewhere in the building, already asleep or close to it. He thought about Claire, who had volunteered with this foundation, folded newsletters for it, believed in it. He thought about the kitchen table at 2 a.m., where he'd drawn the meridian silhouette that Diana Hargrove was now wearing like proof that she belonged in rooms like this. He thought, "I know exactly who I am." It was enough. Almost. The evening continued. The auction opened. Marcus's contribution went to a woman in her 60s, who was bidding on everything and laughing loudly, and seemed to be the most purely joyful person in the room. He was glad. After dinner, he went to check on Amara. She was not asleep. She was awake, sitting cross-legged on her sleeping bag, whispering with another girl who introduced herself as Petra. They were making up an elaborate story about a horse who lived in a city. Marcus recognized the horse from this morning. "Hi, Dad," Amara said, as if she'd expected him. "Just checking. We're fine. I can see that. Petra's dad is here too. He came to check. We think the dads are nervous." Marcus tried not to smile. Smart deduction. Petra's father materialized at the door beside him. They shook hands in the way of fathers who have been publicly analyzed by 7-year-olds with solidarity. His name was James Okafor. He was a pediatric cardiologist, he said, which came out easily and without fanfare, the way people mention things when they're not trying to impress anyone. Marcus said he was a designer. What kind? Mostly apparel. Freelance now. James nodded. No follow-up questions. They watched their daughters for a moment. "They're going to be up until 2, James said. "Probably," Marcus agreed. They walked back toward the ballroom together, talking about school drop-offs and the strange ecosystem of school fundraising, and whether the coffee at the drink station was real or decorative. Diana Hargrove was standing near the entrance when they returned, speaking to 2 other women. She glanced at Marcus, then at James, then back at Marcus with an expression that contained a revision she was too slow to conceal. Marcus kept walking. He found Owen back at table 22, and they sat in comfortable quiet for a while, watching the auction close. The Horse Story Girl's mother, it turned out, won the final lot, a weekend getaway donated by a resort. She screamed with delight. Her husband covered his face. The room laughed warmly. Marcus thought about Amara, one floor up, explaining continuity errors in her own story. He was in the middle of this thought when Patricia Voss came back to the microphone and said, "Before we close the evening, I have an unscheduled announcement. One of our donors has asked to speak, and given what they've shared with me in the last 10 minutes, I think you'll want to hear it." A murmur. Patricia smiled. "Please welcome to the stage, Marcus Weston." Marcus did not stand immediately. Owen looked at him. "Do you know what this is?" "No," Marcus said, which was true. He looked at Patricia, who was gesturing at him with patient encouragement. He stood, walked to the stage, took the microphone. He was not a speaker. He did not like stages. He looked out at 200 people and thought, Claire would think this was hilarious. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say," he started. Gentle laughter. "I came tonight because this foundation meant something to someone I loved. She volunteered here. She believed in the children's reading program and the arts program and the idea that creativity isn't a luxury, it's the way some kids survive their childhoods." The room was quiet now. "I'm a designer. I design clothing, mostly. I've been doing it for about 12 years. For the last 6, I've done it freelance, from a 2nd bedroom in a 2-bedroom apartment. Because my daughter is 7 and she needs me at pickup." He paused. "About 4 years ago, I designed a line for a label, the Meridian Collection. The creative director gave me 1 meeting and 15 minutes, and I pitched the silhouette with sketches I'd done at my kitchen table at 2 a.m., after Amara went to sleep." Another pause. "They bought the full concept. The label was Vassell." The murmur started at the back and moved forward. Marcus watched it reach Diana Hargrove's table, watched her face change. "I don't say that to impress anyone. I say it because someone in this room tonight looked at my shoes and decided what I was worth. And I want to say, clearly, to anyone who's ever been looked at that way." He stopped. Found the words. "The measuring stick they're using is broken. It was always broken. Don't let it measure you." He handed the microphone back to Patricia. The applause was not polite this time. He was at the coat check when she found him. Diana Hargrove moved through the thinning crowd with a particular kind of determination that Marcus recognized as practiced. She stopped 2 feet from him. "Marcus," she said, "I owe you an apology." He looked at her. She was still wearing the Meridian gown. The gold V at her collar caught the light. "I made assumptions," she continued, "about your clothes, about your presence here. It was unkind, and it was wrong, and I'd like to. Mrs. Hargrove," his voice was even, "I appreciate that. I do." He took his coat from the attendant. "But I didn't say what I said up there for an apology from you. I said it for the other people in that room who don't have the story I have, who won't get a moment at the microphone, and who went home tonight still carrying what someone's expression did to them." She opened her mouth. "The apology that matters," he said, not unkindly, "is the one you offer the next person you size up at the door." He nodded once, went to find his daughter. Patricia Voss sent him an email the following Tuesday. Clifton Hargrove had contacted the foundation that morning. The family was doubling their platinum contribution. Patricia wrote, "I don't know exactly what happened between you and the Hargroves, but whatever you said clearly landed." Marcus read it twice, then filed it and went back to his sketch pad. He had a new project, a commission from a contemporary label that wanted a capsule collection. 4 pieces. The brief was simple, understated, intentional, for people who don't need to announce themselves. It was exactly the kind of work he was best at. He sketched at the kitchen table while Amara did her homework across from him. She was working on a story for class. Her assignment was to write about someone she admired. She'd told him she was writing about her mom. He'd said that was a great choice. "I'm also putting you in a footnote," she said, not looking up. "I'm honored. Footnotes are important," she explained. "My teacher said so." He looked at her bent over the paper, her handwriting large and careful. He thought about all the 2 a.m. hours, the resold shoes, the rationed grocery runs, the folding table and the sketch pads, and the way he'd built something piece by piece in the time after Claire died. Not because he was trying to prove anything, but because building was the only way he knew how to grieve. He thought about Diana Hargrove's face in the moment she understood. He didn't feel satisfaction. He felt tired in the way that comes after something is finally over. "Dad," Amara said. "Yeah, Bug, what does discerning mean?" "It means knowing what's good, recognizing quality." She wrote it down. "That's what I'm calling Mom." He nodded. "That's right," he said. "That's exactly what she was." He turned back to his sketch. Outside, it was an ordinary evening. The neighbor's oak tree, the sound of traffic, the small apartment settling around them. He added a seam detail to the collar. Stepped back to look at it. Adjusted the line. It was good. He kept going. 2 months later, Marcus got a call from Vassell's creative director. They were planning a retrospective lookbook, 10 years of the label's most significant collections. They wanted a designer's perspective to anchor the editorial. Could he contribute? He said he'd think about it. Amara was eating cereal across the room, already in her school uniform, her backpack packed and waiting by the door. She'd laid out her outfit herself, the way she'd started doing every morning, with extreme opinions about which socks were acceptable for a given day. Today, purple, non-negotiable. He looked at her. She looked back with her mother's eyes. "Okay," he said into the phone. "Yes, I'll do it." He hung up. Amara tilted her head. "Good news?" "A good project," he said. "Are you nervous?" "A little." She nodded, very serious, the way she'd been serious about buttoning his collar. "You'll be fine, Dad. You're good at your job. Mrs. Reyes says the auction thing you donated was the best one." "She told you that?" "She tells everyone that. The whole class knows." He laughed. He picked up his coffee. Outside the window, the oak tree was still there. The same tree, the same morning. A different year. Different shoes by the door now. New, purple adjacent sneakers Amara had picked herself, and a pair of boots he'd bought himself for the first time in 3 years. Leather, properly resoled, meant to last. He was still himself. Still the man from the back table. Still the one with the overnight bag and the undone collar and the sketch pads and the small apartment. Still here. Still building. "Come on, Bug," he said. "Time to go." She grabbed her backpack. Took his hand. They went. 3 weeks after the gala, Diana Hargrove's name was removed from the Whitmore Foundation's planning committee. A quiet decision, reached by consensus, that Patricia Voss confirmed only when asked directly. Diana was not publicly denounced. She was simply no longer in the room where decisions were made. She called the foundation twice. Neither call was returned. Clifton Hargrove continued to serve on the board. He mentioned Marcus Weston at the next quarterly meeting, unprompted, as an example of the kind of donor the foundation should be cultivating. The room agreed. Diana still wears Vassell. Occasionally, The meridian gown has not appeared since.